This happened 3 years ago. Late September, the night of a historic lunar eclipse. The news said that phrase over and over. Historic, rare, special. My boss even repeated it with a smirk as we closed up, like he was pretending to know about space. I remember thinking, who cares? I wasn't planning on watching the moon, I just wanted to get home. But that night, the moon watched me. I clocked out at 12:41 a.m. I even took a photo of the register, like always, in case the numbers got questioned. It had been one of those nights. Beer spilled across tile. Paper towels stuffed down toilets. I was tired, feet aching, eyes gritty. When I stepped outside, the air was too warm for fall. That heavy late summer cling, like the season refused to let go. And the world was quiet. The kind of 2 a.m. quiet where even the sound of your keys feels too loud. That's when I saw it. The moon. People exaggerate pictures of eclipses. Filters make them look more dramatic. This wasn't a filter. It was red. Not bright red, not beautiful red, but bruised. Like an injury in the sky. The light didn't shine down. It smeared the parking lot, the buildings, my skin, all painted in that wrong color. I tried not to stare, but it followed me, no matter where I looked. I filled my tank earlier in the shift. Good thing. I set the route, trusting my phone. 20 minutes down the highway, it buzzed. 10 minutes faster. Exit ahead. My brain said yes before my gut could say no. That's how it always goes, right? Late, tired. You trust a line on a glowing screen more than your own instincts. I took the exit. It didn't feel like a real road. 2 lanes. No reflectors. Asphalt cracked like old scars. The kind of road that felt older than the highway. Older than the town. My headlights painted broken fences. Fields swallowed by weeds. One deer crossed far ahead, just a flicker of gray through the red light. Then nothing. No cars, no houses, no sound. Until the sign. It sat crooked on the shoulder. Brown wood. White letters. Welcome to H. The rest smeared with paint. Beneath it, Pop. 2104. I grew up in that county. I knew every town, every diner, every high school mascot. This wasn't one of them. I slowed, raised my phone to take a picture. That's when the bars vanished. No signal. The camera lagged, shutter dragging. The photo came out wrong, just red blur, and 2 white eyes staring back. Not mine. I deleted it instantly. The road narrowed further, guardrails dented like something had tested them for years. Then, in the distance, a rectangle of light. Gas station canopy. I should have driven past. Instead, I slowed. No cars, no people. Just sterile white glow. The pumps were wrapped in plastic. Price boards showed zeros. Dead, except for 1 car. Silver sedan, parked under the far corner of the canopy. Half in shadow, its windows, fogged, every single one. But the air was warm, humid. That fog could only mean one thing. Someone was inside. Maybe someone's in trouble, I told myself. But the truth, I was curious, so I pulled in, killed the headlights, and the world went quiet. I called out without getting out. Hey, you okay in there? Silence. No movement. Then, on the passenger glass, a line appeared, drawn from the top down, cutting through the fog. Like a finger, tracing from the inside. I unbuckled without thinking, stepped out. The station lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled faintly of old gasoline and something sour. I crept closer. That's when it appeared. The handprint. It didn't exist until I saw it happen. 5 clear streaks in the fog. Palm too wide, fingers too long. It pressed into being right in front of me. I stumbled back, heel skidding on gravel. Okay, I whispered. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Inside the car, something shuffled, fabric dragging leather. The rear window bulged, like someone pressed their back hard against it, then flattened again. I circled to the driver's side. The lock pin was up. I peered inside, and I saw it. On the back seat, a bundle. Not clothes, not a bag. Something heavy. Rising, falling, breathing. My brain tried to lie. Baby seat, it said. But then it flexed, and something like hair slid into view. Black. So black it swallowed the canopy light. "Hey!" I shouted. I knocked on the glass. That was the mistake. Every lock in the car slammed down at once. Snick, perfect. Simultaneous. The sound froze my blood. My car sat behind me, driver's door open, interior light still glowing. But the sedan, its windshield wipers dragged across dry glass. A long, tearing scrape. They stopped mid-swipe. Hung there. Like they'd changed their minds. I started backing away. That's when I noticed the mirror. The side mirror angled inward. Not a reflection of me. Something else leaned forward in that warped chrome. A face without features. Just hints. Sockets too deep. Mouth too wide. Cheekbones wrong, like something trying to remember what a face looks like. I ran. I dove into my car. Engine roared. I slammed it into drive. The second I moved, my radio exploded, full volume. Not music. A voice. It whispered my name. Over and over, stretched, broken, like someone learning how to say it. Behind me, the sedan's headlights flared. No engine sound, just two perfect white circles sliding after me. They didn't close, didn't fade, held the exact same distance, 20 feet. 2 miles, impossible to tell. Every curve I took they followed, not like a driver, like a reflection. At one bend, I saw more than lights. In the sedan's outline, something was crawling forward. From the back seat to the front, elbow, shoulder, head. The neck bent too far, slow. Patient, learning how to move. The highway reappeared like salvation. Reflectors shone white instead of red. Signs glowed the right green. I sped harder, and then the radio snapped back to music. Normal. When I checked the mirror, the lights were gone. Just me and the road. I laughed, but it wasn't relief. It was hysteria. Home didn't feel safe. The dark corners all felt occupied. I locked my doors twice, closed the blinds, didn't sleep. At some point, I checked the dash cam, hoping for proof I imagined it. But the footage was worse. It showed the gas station, the sedan, the fogged glass, and in the mirror's reflection, my own back seat. Empty. Then 50 feet later, not empty. A shape, a dent in the light, leaning forward. Closer. For weeks after, it didn't stop. My name whispered in static, wipers dragging once across dry glass, handprints on fogged windows. When I told people, they all asked the same question. What station? But no one knew it. They swore there hadn't been a gas station there in years. Not since the reservoir wiped out the little town nearby. Now, whenever the calendar says eclipse, I get sick. Head pounding, ears clicking. I never take shortcuts anymore. Because that night taught me, a blood moon isn't an omen, it's a confession. If you're ever driving under a red sky, and your GPS whispers about a faster road, don't take it. If you see a gas station glowing too bright at 3 a.m., with a silver sedan sitting fogged and waiting, don't stop. And if you've already stopped, and a handprint appears on the glass, run. Because some passengers don't need doors. They're already in your car, already whispering your name, already leaning closer, waiting for you to notice. This happened 2 years ago, and every time I try to tell it, people assume it's just a ghost story, or a forgotten urban legend, or something I misremembered from a podcast. I wish that were true. I wish I had dreamed it, or absorbed it from a story online. But I didn't, because I was there. I walked into a town that doesn't appear on modern maps. I sat in a diner where every clock stayed locked at 11:47 p.m. I heard an organ play chords under a red moon, while strangers smiled, like they'd been waiting for us all along. And when the bell finally rang, the road out wasn't a road anymore. It was water, and the town wanted us to stay. It started as an ordinary road trip. Me and my girlfriend, Lena, now my ex. We were driving from my parents' house in Iowa up to her cousin's place near Green Bay. It was supposed to be a small, quick trip. Grab coffee, spend a night on a pull-out couch, come home with one more inside joke. We left late because my mother believes love has to be served in 7 courses. So when we finally hit the highway, the sky was already turning the color of rusted pennies. That night was the lunar eclipse, the one every news anchor called historic. And as we drove, the moon rose higher, orange at first, then bruised, red. The map chirped a detour. Accident ahead, heavy delays, save 42 minutes via County Road 19. If I'd ignored it, we would have crawled through traffic and made it safe. Instead, I took the exit. The road narrowed, the trees pressed in, crowding close like they wanted to listen. My phone lost its signal, and then we saw the sign. Wooden, weathered, white letters that caught our headlights. Halloway. At first it looked like any forgotten town, a strip mall with dark windows, a laundromat with one dying fluorescent tube, a barbershop, and then a diner. Its neon sign buzzed warm and yellow. Tessie's. The 3 E's were crooked like someone had twisted them by hand. We were tired, hungry. 15 minutes, we thought. Fries, coffee, then back on the road. We pushed through the glass door, and immediately, every clock we saw said 11:47 p.m., not moving, not ticking, just 11:47. The bell above the door chimed. Heads turned. Every person in the diner looked at us and smiled, not just friendly, not fake. The same smile, slow, patient, like they'd been waiting for us to arrive. The waitress came over, mid-40s, hair pinned the way people wore it in the 70s. Her name tag was blank. She placed 2 mugs of coffee down without asking. Evening, she said, passing through. We nodded, told her we were heading to Green Bay. She smiled wider. You should stay the night. It's not safe to drive out under this moon. Not the moon, not the blood moon, she said. This moon. At the counter, a teenage boy in a baseball cap turned and grinned at us. You missed the bell, he said. Midnight. We ring it at the church, brings everyone in safe. Sometimes folks don't make it, but if you're lucky, a boat finds you. He said it like a line rehearsed in the mirror, like he wanted us to believe it. The waitress set down, a slice of pie, apple, perfect crust, steam rising like breath. We hadn't ordered it. We really need to keep going, Lena whispered. But the waitress only said with a tone so gentle it felt rehearsed, it's not safe to leave before the bell. Outside, the night was heavy. Across the street, the motel office door stood open. A bell sat on the counter. Behind it, a ring of wooden keys. We stepped inside. The air smelled like lemon oil and dust. A rack of postcards showed a lake with boats that looked too old. On the key ring, every tag was wood. Oval. No numbers. Just carved notches, like a code only one person could read. The guest book lay open. Every line had the same date. August. 21 different pens. Different hands, but the same date over and over. Steps creaked overhead. A man came down. Flannel shirt, bolo tie, same diner smile. Evening, he said brightly. Staying in town? We told him no, that we just needed the highway. He lifted a key with 2 notches. If you check in, he said, the bell rings at midnight. Everyone gets where they're going after. That's our way here. Safer. For you. For all of us. Lena gripped my hand, nails digging. I forced a polite smile. No, thank you. We backed out. The man stayed in the doorway, still smiling, the key dangling in his hand. We drove. Turned left, then right. Past the same dark storefronts again. Tessie's appeared a second time, The same teenage girls laughed in the window. Identical. A loop. Every clock still read 11:47. But the second hands had shifted, each one in a different place, circling endlessly toward the same mark. "We're going to the church," I said. It sat on a small rise. Stone walls, a steeple that looked broken off. The bell hung outside, dew silver on its cracked lip. And the townsfolk were gathering, children holding old men's hands, women carrying loaves of bread, smiling, always smiling. No one looked at the sky. They all listened, because now we heard it too. A low note, then another, then a third, an organ, playing one endless patient chord. A man in a suit too big approached, hands spread in welcome. "Stay," he said gently. "It's safer." "What happens if we leave now?" Lena whispered. "You don't," he said. "Not until after the bell." We didn't stay. We ran east of town. The ground fell away, and suddenly there was no land, only water. A flat black plate reflecting the blood moon, and cutting across it, a narrow road, a causeway, 2 lanes, guardrails dented and rusting. I drove, slowly, carefully. The first stretch was solid. Then the lines began to swim as if painted on water. The wheel tugged in my hands. The dash dimmed, then brightened, like it was breathing shallowly. Mist rose from the road. It drifted through vents I had closed. It tasted like pennies. Then, the boat appeared, a flat-bottomed skiff gliding silently across the road 2 inches, above the asphalt. 3 people sat inside, smiling. They didn't look at us. They didn't need to. The boat passed, leaving no wake. But where it crossed, the painted line rippled like wet paint. Another boat. Then another. The third carried only 1 passenger, a woman, in a black dress. She turned her head and looked straight through our windshield. Her expression was tired, gentle, and she lifted her hand and made a small motion, like drawing a curtain, aside. The red light thinned for 1 brief second, and the road under us felt real again. Then it happened. The bell rang. First we felt it, a pressure shift, like the world had exhaled. Then the sound, a massive bronze tone that rolled across the water. Behind us, the organ chord changed, resolving into something full, final. In the rearview mirror, the town flickered. The neon winked once. Street lamps dimmed. Windows shifted. All the clocks, every 11:47, froze together. The town held its breath, and then it was gone. The road steadied. Ripples became ripples again. The shore rose ahead. We didn't look back. Not once. We hit the highway. The radio snapped back mid-mattress commercial. Lena cried until she fell asleep. I drove until my hands stopped shaking. At a bright gas station, a trucker asked if we were okay. We lied. He nodded like he knew the truth anyway. Weeks later, I searched for Holloway. No modern map showed it. An old forum argued. Flood, relocation, dam project. One user wrote, "We do plan floods when they keep the bad water in." I closed the tab. But small things kept following me. A church program slipped out of a library book, Holloway Methodist. Music by Mrs. Therese Kane, handwritten on the back. Bell rings at 12:00, don't be late. Once my rear car window fogged on a cold morning. 5. Stripes appeared like a hand pressing from the inside. If you don't believe me, good. I hope you're right. But if you ever find yourself on a detour and the map tells you it's faster and you pass a wooden sign that says Holloway with a cutout of a tree and a fish, keep driving. Don't stop at Tessie's. Don't touch the motel keys. Don't wait for the bell. Because the town will smile and the people will welcome you and the boats will always find their way. But they don't always bring you back. And when the blood moon rises, Holloway is waiting. my grandfather died, he left me a cabin and a journal. The cabin was ordinary enough, logs darkened by weather, a roof that sighed under snow, shutters that complained when the wind pressed against them. But the journal felt alive. Its pages looked like they'd been written with rainwater and rust. Every word pressed deep, like they weren't just notes. They were warnings carved by a man who knew his nights were numbered, and the first page had only one line. "This is for when I'm gone." I should have left it there. I should have boxed it with the nails, the fishing poles, the shotgun labeled for raccoons, not for people. But I didn't. And because I didn't, I know what walks on the nights when the moon runs red. The cabin sat on the shoulder of a lake, where the trees thinned into reed and muck and the shoreline looked less like land and more like something borrowed. It wasn't meant to be a home. My grandfather built it after retiring from the mill, just a place where the world couldn't breathe down his neck. I went there with him sometimes as a kid. My memories are stitched together with smell and sound, damp sweaters hung by the Yule, wood stove bacon frying in a pan that smoked like a cheap bar, his voice giving rules I didn't understand. Rules like, keep the outhouse latch hooked, even if you're alone, don't whistle after dark. If the wind stops, light the lantern, and if you hear someone calling from the water, it's either a loon or a mistake. Back then, I never asked him why. Kids don't. You just inherit the rules, like you inherit hair color. But in that journal, decades later, I would see them written down, expanded, clarified, twisted into something that made sense, and something that didn't. Weeks after his funeral, my mother and I went out to clean the place. The journal was hidden in a locked drawer under his bed, the key taped beneath it. Very much his style. Secrets you're supposed to find eventually. It was wrapped in a dish towel. Black cloth cover, spine taped once with cloth tape. His name on the first page, James Elwood. Underneath, a date, October 6th, 1968. And then, "This is for when I'm gone." My mother didn't want to read. She said it was just his notes, maybe nonsense written when he was lonely. She wanted to box things and go home, but I sat at the table. I opened the book, and I began to read. Every entry was labeled with a date and a phase of the moon, full, half, quarter, new, and sometimes blood. Those pages were different. On blood nights, he didn't write memories, he wrote rules. The first entry that froze me had just 3 lines and a drawing. "Don't count past 99 if you start counting. If you bolt them all, it will take the one it wants from the inside. Leave one open and let it choose." Underneath was a sketch of the cabin's front wall. The windows marked, latches circled. On each blood entry, the filled-in circle moved, as if he had been rotating which window he left unlocked, as if he was feeding it a choice. Another entry had 4 more rules. You can talk back to a voice that belongs to someone living. It won't mind. If someone dead calls to you, put your hands in your pockets and look at your knuckles. If you see your own reflection outside the window, don't wave. Write down the words it says, and don't let them be the last words you write. That night, I flipped forward in a panic, looking for the newest date. The last entry was 5 months before he died. I don't like that it changed. I don't like that it wants his name. He doesn't owe you. I paid. Find another. You had your windows. The graphite had been pressed so hard the page had grooves. At the bottom, 1 word, settled, and 3 deep lines cut into the paper. That night, I dreamed of the cabin, of windows breathing, of voices outside that knew my name. And when I woke, I knew what I was going to do. Because the news was buzzing. In a week, there would be a lunar eclipse, a blood moon. I told myself I was being practical. The chimney needed a look, the propane line a bleed. But the truth was simpler. I needed to know if the rules were real. So, on the night of the blood moon, I drove back. The air was metallic, sharp in the nose. The cabin sat like it always did, polite and tired, waiting for me to introduce myself. Inside, I built a fire, made cheap coffee the way he used to, tried to convince myself the journal was nothing but scribbles of a lonely man. But when I leaned, close to the kitchen window, I saw breath on the glass. Mine. And yet, I hadn't been close enough to fog it. It started around 8:42 p.m. Every light in the cabin dimmed yellow. The fridge hummed, coughed, and died. The old radio spat static, then whispered a half-word that could have been my name. And then came the knock. 2 knuckles. Gentle. On the wood beside the kitchen window. I looked up, and I saw it. Not a face, not details, just the impression of a person standing too close to the glass. The fog ovaled outward. Breath. Real breath. Then, a fingertip pressed against it. Dragged down. 5 neat crescents, like short nails leaving a signature. "Grandpa?" I said, and the shape leaned, back, then slid sideways, moving along the outer wall, knocking as it went, patient, deliberate, until it reached the door and tried the handle. I ran for the bedroom, for the shotgun, but when I entered, I froze, because in the glass of the window, outside in the dark, stood me. Eyes closed, expression blank, and my reflection, the not me, raised its hand and began to wave. Slow, practiced, like a child unsure of how waving works. I looked down, at my own hands, spread my fingers, stared until the pulse throbbed in them. When I looked up again, the wave had stopped. Only a greasy smudge remained where its palm had pressed, and in my mouth the metallic taste of pennies. I backed into the kitchen, knuckles white on the table. I looked at the journal, and that's when I noticed something new. On the inside back cover, faintly indented without graphite. If you change the rules, it won't know where to go. If you don't offer it a way in, it will take a way out. It likes debt. Don't owe it anything on a red night. The deadbolt on the front door turned, on its own. The lock slid home with a heavy thunk. The cabin had locked itself. Then the voice came. Not my grandfather, not my mother, but close. "You forgot the lantern," it said softly. "It's dark on the path. Come now, I'll walk you." It said my name, gently, like a teacher calling roll. I stared harder at my hands, spread my fingers until tears blurred them. The voice waited, patient, and then, from the lake, a loon called, a real loon. But the voice changed key to match it, mocked it, and ruined it. The fridge clicked back, the lights fluttered, and then the kitchen window latch lifted, on its own, just enough for cold air to slip through. Not the cold of weather, the cold of somewhere that doesn't remember lungs. A fern of frost traced itself on the inside glass. Melted without dripping, the smell of apples, rotting, sweet, filled the cabin. And then I heard it, not with ears, with the room itself. A step, inside, balanced, patient, deciding. The radio clicked, and a voice whispered, 90. Then, 91. I froze. The rule, don't count past 99. And yet, my mind began. 92, 93, 94. I clapped my hands over my ears, screamed nonsense words. "Truck, toolbox, Tuesday." The radio laughed, a high, warped static laugh. Then, 97. I sang the alphabet, off key, desperate. The voice hummed the last note with me. And then, 99. I whispered, "Stop." And for the first time, it obeyed. The silence pressed close, dense, like a body in the room. The window eased shut. The latch clicked. The deadbolt on the front door slid halfway. Paused, as if a hand had second thoughts. And then, in the radio, a voice careful and deliberate spoke 3 words. Debt settled. My knees buckled. The air lightened. The smell of apples thinned. The shape of the cabin loosened, like it was remembering how to be just a building. It walked the walls once more. Slow, polite, and then it was gone. At dawn, the cabin was just wood and nails again. The fridge hummed steady, the radio silent. But when I opened the journal one last time, a new line had been pressed into the paper. No graphite, just trenches. Thank you, boy. I don't go back on red nights anymore. I don't need to be brave or stupid. The journal lives in a box in my closet, wrapped in a towel that still smells like bacon and smoke. And on its first blank page, in my own hand, I've written one rule of my own. If you feel like you owe the night anything, pay an attention, not in promises. If you ever find yourself in a cabin under a blood moon, and you hear a knock at the window, or your mother's voice calling from the dark, don't wave, look at your hands, and wait for the debt to pass you by.